Hello everyone, this is Blister bringing you guys our last talent overview for Classic WoW. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Warlock. The Warlock was a class that every raider loved to see in their raid group. It often meant that there was going to be a good chance you could get summoned to the raid instead of having to haul your ass over there for whatever 20 or 40 man raid you were doing. It also meant health stones and wipe protections with soul stones. Warlocks were highly sought after in Manila by almost every high-end guild because of this, but I haven't met a Warlock yet who said they enjoyed farming shards pre-raid to make sure that they could have as many soul stones and as summons available as the raid would need. In today's video we're going to be doing things a little bit differently because of how the talent builds fell for the Warlock back in Classic. We're going to be looking at the common PvE builds and then the common PvP builds. Up first on our list, we're going to take a look at the PvE builds. From the research that I did, there were only two real builds. Both of the builds were hybrid specs though, which both used Destruction Tree. The first build we're going to take a look at is the Affliction Destruction spec, known for Shadow Mastery and Ruin. So as I said, the two most important talents for this build are Shadow Mastery and Ruin. Though they aren't your only skills that are going to help with your damage, they're going to be your biggest contributors. Of the 11 different talents that we're picking up in the Affliction tree, only 3 of them are really worth mentioning. The first of which is Nightfall. Now Nightfall is a damage increase, but it changes your gameplay a bit as well as giving you those instant cast shadow bolts. Note that it doesn't say anything about mana, so you will need to make sure that you have enough mana to make sure you can cast these insta-cast shadow bolts. Which brings me to the second talent I wanted to point out, Improved Life Tap. Improved Life Tap is going to help you get your mana back so you can cast those extra spells. Even though you should have to life tap less because of the bonus mana you're getting from this spell, it doesn't mean that you don't have to be careful when you life tap. If you life tap during a healing intensive part of the fight, it may be 10 to 20 seconds before a healer can top you back off. And if there is a raid-wide damage going out, you could end up screwing yourself and killing yourself. The last of the 3 talents I want to point out is Curse of Exhaustion, and furthermore, Improved Curse of Exhaustion. The reason why I bring these up is because, quite frankly, I believe they're optional. They were part of nearly every guide that I saw, but I don't see the benefit of Curse for PvE. If a veteran Warlock happens to know why we should take this talent and it's absolutely necessary, please mention it down in the comments. I want to know what we are going to be using it for. Otherwise, in my opinion, these 4 talents are optional. Other than that, the rest of the Affliction tree is what you would expect. More damage, less cast time, better range, more good stuff like that. Jumping over to the Destruction tree, we already mentioned how Ruin is going to be a huge part of our DPS. For the rest of the tree, the majority of the skills, again, are just going to help us with our overall DPS. More crit, better range, smaller casting times, etc. I do still have some of the out of the norm talents that I want to bring up. Firstly, Shadowburn. Shadowburn isn't going to be much of a DPS increase by using it. It's more so going to be used to try and make sure that you can get the soul shards on everything while you're inside of a raid, because people are still going to need those soul stones and health stones and summons while you're in the raid. The last part of the Destruction tree I wanted to touch on is Improved Shadow Bolt. Normally the improved spells just improve the spell that you're actually casting. This skill is actually going to make you want to think about what spell you're going to cast next. In my opinion, it's actually a very nice addition to the Warlock build. The second PvE build we're going to outline here is the Demonology Destruction build, using again Ruin and Demonic Sacrifice. This spec is considered to have more output compared to the first spec, but it's not going to have as much survivability. So as I said, the 2 big spells for this build are Demonic Sacrifice and again Ruin. You're going to want to use Sacrifice on your Succubus for that 15% shadow damage with this spec. The 15% that we get flat outweighs the 10% from Shadow Mastery using the Affliction tree. In terms of talent points, the Destro tree is exactly the same, but we do get an extra 2 points to spend in Cataclysm. In the Affliction tree, we take just enough to get 2 out of 2 in Life Tap. All Warlocks are going to be using Life Tap regardless of their spec. We put 5 out of 5 in improved corruption purely because it's just the better talent option. Going into the demonology tree, obviously there is demonic sacrifice, but after that one, you could argue that a whole lot of this tree is filled with options, and most of the stuff is just nice to have. The one I would argue is most required is improved healthstone. It's just going to be an overall benefit for anyone in your raid using your healthstone. The other talents that some people could argue are required are Fell Domination and Master Summoner. Those are just going to help you get cheaper and faster summons on your demons. Since Sacrifice Demon lasts a full 30 minutes, you shouldn't need to use your summons mid-fight unless you die, in which case these would quote-unquote be required. But knowing that these last 30 minutes, you could cast all of this pre-pull, and then you essentially have wasted talents. That is why I argue that these are only semi-required talents. You could also argue that summoning a new demon to sack it halfway through the fight would be why it'd be required. But I don't know what other demonic sacrifice buff is going to outweigh the 15% shadow damage you get from the succubus. The rest of the talents are essentially optional, but we picked the best quote-unquote nice-to-have talents we could. The only other talent you could kinda say is required is Demonic Embrace. If you have more HP, you can life tap more. But theoretically, the more health shouldn't benefit you since your healers are going to be topping you off anyways. It's just going to help prevent you from being one-shot. So now with PvE out of the way, let's take a look at PvP. First up is an Affliction build. Look familiar? Well, it should. This is essentially the Shadow Mastery / Ruin spec with a few tweaks. You will see that we left Suppression at only 3 out of 5. That is because those 2 extra points are better off used in Fell Concentration. I wish we could go a full 5 out of 5 in Fell Concentration, but the DPS gains from Curse of Agony are very good, especially when we're on the move. The only other change here is we only have 2 points in Shadow Mastery, and that is because of what awaits us in the Destruction tree. Again, in the Destruction tree, everything is almost identical to the PvE spec. The only difference is that we drop 2 points from Cataclysm. Those 2 points, plus the extra 2 points we get from the Affliction tree, are going to let us get Intensity and Pyroclasm. We know that Fear is going to be the major contributor for a Warlock CC in PvP, but don't discount the stun that you get from Pyroclasm. It could save you from time to time. The other PvP spec we want to take a look at is a Deep Destruction spec. Finally here we see something a little bit different. We don't take improved life tap, although you could take 2 points from the Demonology tree for it. Demonic Embrace and improved Hellstone are going to help you with your survivability, which is why we took it over life tap. Looking at the Destruction tree, you will see that we finally have not taken improved Shadow Bolt, and that is because shadow spells are not going to be our go-to spells. In place of that, we've gone 5 out of 5 in Cataclysm simply because it's our only other choice. The only other noticeable choice in this tree is Conflagrate. This skill is great for PvP. It's instant cast and it has high damage. The rest of the tree is either stuff we've touched on before or it's just more of the usual damage buffs. The spec is mostly based off of Conflagrate and its instant speed damage you can do, but it also utilizes Searing Pain and improved Searing Pain, as it can get a high amount of damage from its only 1.5 second cast time and all of the buffs that we get from the Destruction tree. You'll notice that we kind of left out a Demonology PvP spec. While the tree does offer some good defensive skills at the bottom of the tree, the rest of the skills are simply not worth it for PvP. Other than the few skills that will transfer damage from you to your pet, most of the tree is just about buffing your pet, and in PvP that can be very unreliable. If we're going to be playing 1v1 all of the time, I could see an argument for it, but in Battlegrounds, it's hard to see a point in speccing for just 1v1 combat. Well anyways guys, that's all I got for the Warlock. I know this one was a bit shorter than the average guide, but there wasn't as many builds out there to try and follow and read up on as compared to some of the other classes we've gone over. If you guys like this video, make sure you subscribe. We aren't done with Classic WoW just because we've gone through all of the classes. We're going to continue with new content, so make sure you're subscribed to catch all of it. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey, it's Radit here. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe as well. It really helps out the channel. We put out multiple new videos each week, and we appreciate all of your support. Thanks for watching, everyone, and cheers.